Hi students, in this video I'd like to talk about information architectures, and I'm going to focus a lot on card sorting, which is a method for discovering information about how to form an information architecture. So first let's talk about navigation. Navigation is necessary for your website, but it's what we call XIs. It's crucial to using the site, but it's not really what the users are there for. Users have to use navigation, they don't necessarily want to. Navigation doesn't provide any sort of achievement for users. User goals will never be satisfied simply by navigation. So the navigation is there and it's crucial, but it's XIs. It's not what the user is there for. It's a tool for them to achieve their goals, but not the content they're looking for, not the thing that they're looking for to achieve their goal. So as a result, navigation should be as simple and seamless as possible. Sometimes we sort of say navigation should be invisible. It should be so easy to use that people don't really notice what the navigation is like. Now, information architecture really is a way of describing how you create and show your navigational structure. So information architecture is the structure and labeling of content in web design. If you work in information architecture, then you work solely with determining the structure and labeling of websites. Information architecture is a foundational step in the site creation process. As you create a website, you have to create an information architecture. It's generally one of the first things that you do when you get to the part of the process where you're actually ready to sit down and start putting a site together. Obviously, things like research, user research would come before that. Information architecture answers two key questions. How do I best structure the content, and how do I best explain the navigational choices? So how do you best label it, which could include words, icons, pictures, descriptions, or a combination of those things. Now, structure is communicated via sitemaps. So an information architect, when he or she has developed an information architecture, will show it in a sitemap. And a sitemap is the bare bones structural map that shows page relationships. So here's a very simple website. We have home, company, news and events, products. Each of these navigation elements has a drop down. So you see here that news and events has 3 subcategories: industry news, press releases, and events. And this is the sitemap of that site. So again, you see we have homepage, and from the homepage you can access company, news and events, products, installations, and for each of those pages we label what the subpages are. So if I were to click on company on that website in that main navigation, I would get a drop down that says employment, contact us, FAQ, and executive team, and I can choose one of those and go to a subpage. And you'll see that the lines tell us what is connected to what. So if I'm on the executive team page, it's not connected directly to the events page. If I want to get to the events page, I have to go up to the main navigation, click news and events, and then click events from the drop down. So how do we determine the structure and labeling? How do we come up with an information architecture? Well, it really starts with metadata, and metadata is data about data, or as your reading describes, information about information. Tags, categories, that kind of thing. You might be familiar with metadata from your camera. Perhaps on your phone you have a camera that will tell you when you took the picture, any filters that you use, sometimes the location. That's all metadata. On a website, metadata is a very similar concept, data about our content. So categories for content, tags for content, type descriptions for content. And metadata helps us aggregate and categorize the type of items on the site. Metadata is based on your content attributes, so different sites will have different kinds of metadata. For example, a news site, what's the important information here that every article is going to have? A date, author, section, subject, perhaps a media type, whether it's a photo gallery or a video. What about a site that sells clothing? What kind of attributes do those clothes shown on the site have? Well, they're for a specific gender usually. They have some kind of type like outerwear, pants, seasonal wear, you have size, color, definitely more than that, but those are some of the basics. What about a university website? What kind of attributes does each piece of content have? Well, audience is a big one. In fact, if you go to the bsu.edu website, you'll see that the navigation across the top allows you to break the site down into audience. So if you are a current student, you can just select current student, you'll only see content that's geared to you. College, departments certainly have a lot of content that they need to manage that's specific to just their area. There's 3 types of metadata: crucial, optional, and irrelevant. I'm not going to go over this in too much detail because it is discussed at length in your reading, but crucial metadata is important to all users, optional is important to some users, irrelevant is used for tracking and understanding what people are looking at. It doesn't appear on your site. So crucial is generally what we consider top-level navigation. It's the first decision in users' narrowing process. So crucial information, crucial metadata categories are generally presented in the main navigation because it's the first step in narrowing. Optional is presented only after crucial choices have been made. This is considered second level navigation, and it really depends on the audience, purpose, and volume of content, just like the metadata types. Optional metadata is really going to depend on who's looking at your site, how much they know about what you do already, what the purpose of your site is, and how much content you have and what different kinds you have. I want to talk a little bit about card sorting. Card sorting is employed to understand users' mental models of categories and topics. So before you set out to create an information architecture, it's helpful to know what people think about your site or your business or the content on your website. And a mental model is a key term that we use in interaction design, not just for websites, but for things like apps. And mental models are what users believe about a system. So when a person approaches your site, they believe it's going to work in a certain way, and they have certain preconceived notions about your content areas and topics, and that's going to influence how they look around your site and what they expect the navigation to be. So card sorting is a technique to understand what those mental models are, so we can understand the categories and topics that people already think might be there. And the key reason for doing card sorting is that we want to make sure we're designing according to our users. This is a user-centered design process. We want to make sure that you're not designing according to your preference. If you're creating the website, you probably have a very intimate knowledge of the topics presented on the website, and you know more than your typical audience member will know. And so it's easier for you to create any kind of navigation and use it because you understand the relationships between the content in a way that most users won't. So card sorting allows us to understand users and build an information architecture off of our understanding of them rather than our personal preferences or what we know about the topics. So card sorting is, again, user-based, and it's going to help us understand how the audience perceives relationships between our content areas. It's a categorization task. It's a generative method, which means it's a method used to generate ideas and structures. Usability testing, on the other hand, is evaluative. You've been looking at things that have already been made and evaluating them. Because card sorting helps us create an information architecture when we don't have one, it's generative. We're looking at what we should make based on the studies. When card sorting, you should test on 15 users, which is 3 times more than usability testing. And this is to account for the variance in people's mental models. The great thing about card sorting is it really helps you determine structure and labeling, which is exactly what information architecture is about. The card sorting has a very specific method. First, you create cards with site content items. Then you provide the cards to your representative users. You ask the users to sort the cards into groups that they think go together. You want to record the groupings that they come up with and then evaluate the results of all of the tests and then develop an information architecture from there. So let's go through these one by one. First, creating cards. When you create cards, it's really important that you don't use navigation labels like contact, about, and home. These can really bias your test subject. If your test subject sees these labels, they might start putting the cards in order of another website that they've seen. If they see contact, about, and home, they might think to themselves, of course, I see those all the time on websites and they're all separate, so they won't put them in the same group. Instead, you want to use content items. For example, a card that says company's primary email address, a card that says sizing chart, a card that says t-shirts, a card that says instructions on applying to university. So each card should have the content item, what piece of content goes on the site, not what label do you want to call that. And it's again important that you always want to shuffle the cards before beginning a test. Really simple thing, but easy to miss sometimes. Let's talk about your users. Just like when you're doing usability testing with users, your users for a card sorting test should be representative. That means they should be users who would conceivably actually use your website and not just people who are convenient for you to test on. You can work with groups or individuals when doing card sorting, although some researchers have suggested, or I guess designers have suggested, that working with individuals may be better because by nature, browsing a website is typically an individual experience. And so having people sort cards individually could possibly mimic the idea of being on a website, by yourself. You don't have help, you don't have anyone to ask questions to or converse with. Once you have the cards and you have your users, one by one, you want to give the users the cards and ask them to sort the cards into piles of things that go together. And the users can sort into as many piles as they want. Some piles might end up being large, others small. That's okay. A lot of times in a card sorting exercise, the testing subjects will ask questions like, am I doing this right? Or how many piles should I have? The answer really is, you make the piles. So you decide what goes together. You can have as many piles as you want. It's really up to the user. Additional steps can include asking users to name their groups. The nice thing about this technique is it can help give you tips for label creation. Having card sorting subject participants sort cards is an exercise in helping you understand the potential structure of your site. Having those same test subjects name their groups can help you determine the labels, which takes care of both the structure and label creation parts of the information architecture process. After each sorting test, you want to record the groups that each person created, and then any names that they provided if you have the testers provide names to those groups. From there, you're going to analyze the results by extracting patterns from results, and there are several ways to analyze results. In professional card sorting, dendrograms are used. What you're going to do this week is just look for patterns. Extract patterns from what you see. You should have written down all of the different groups that everyone made very, very specifically. What were the groups? What order do they put everything in? And from that, you're just going to flip through them and look for patterns and try to get a sense of what did most people put together. Let's look at an example, and we're going to look at an example provided by a remote card sorting company. Remote card sorting is card sorting that's conducted via digital tools online. So remote just means they're doing the card sorting from one place to another place that's distance. They're not in the same room with the testers. Let's take a look at this and you'll see card sorting in action. So for this example, we're going to be sorting cards from Bananacom, which is obviously a fake company that has been created just in order to show how card sorting works. So let's click continue and you'll see we get instructions. We're going to drag items from the card list on the left into the working area on the right. If you were doing this not as a digital project but in person, the list on the left would be index cards and the area on the right would just be a desk space that was clear. And the instructions, you want to organize the items into groups that belong together and then give each group a name that I think represents the group I've created. The way the groups are arranged are not important for this. You can ask people to arrange the groups from left to right in order of importance if you want, but for this example, we're not going to do that. So you'll see I have cards, and I'm just going to go through them one by one. Internet connection speed test. I don't know what that is. I'm going to put it over there because I have no idea. Home phone, pay my bill. Games, I don't really see how that fits, so I'm going to put that out of the way too. Career opportunities, no idea. And actually, I'm going to have to make my browser window a little bit bigger in order to accommodate these. There we go. Cell phones, Okay, discounted cell phones. Okay, that sounds like this first group seems to all be buying stuff. When my cell phone is broken, no idea. So let's put that maybe over here. Calling rates, again, they're selling me something. Accessories, selling me something. This is billing. Best call. A tool to calculate the best cell phone plan for me. That sounds like they're selling me something. Contact. It seems kind of related to job opportunities. I'll put it right there. Home internet and phone bundles, if that seems the same, and then change my internet plan. So I already have it, I'm changing it, that seems kind of like billing. So now that I have created these, I see that I put cell phones and home internet all together, and that doesn't sound right. So I'm gonna make my own group for home phone, best cell, home phone. Okay, so I'm going to name this cell phones, home phone, billing. I have no idea. Extras, sure. Connection, these, I'm going to put these together. This seems like IT services, or maybe help. This seems like contact, and career opportunities, let's call that jobs. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 piles, but I seem to think these two seem related to each other. These two seem related to each other, so I'm going to click finished. And I'm just going to take this quick little survey for no reason. You don't need to have a survey with your card sorting necessarily, but let's look at the results. So I'm looking at the results not just of my card sorting exercise, but of everyone who's taken this card sorting exercise. So if I click on, let's see, I want PCA, there we go. And you'll see that about half of participants sorted their cards in a very similar way to what you see here. So this is actually very similar to what I did as well. People put, you know, basic information. You have the career opportunities, the phone number, email address. Some of these didn't appear in my cards. Cell phone, they put all these cell phone things together, home phone and internet, and then 3G, which I didn't receive any 3G cards. Normally you would give everyone the same cards, so you wouldn't give some people some cards. I actually think my browser is messing this up and not showing me all of the cards. So you can see that about half of the participants came up with this structure. About a third came up with one like this, where they put all cell phones, accessories, and apps together, and then they weren't sure about the rest. And then about a fifth came up with general info, products, plans, frequently asked questions, and account. So by looking at how most people put these items together and what they named them, you get a sense of what your navigation can look like. What topic areas do you put in the same area, and then what labels can you call each of those areas?